Shalom. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Chai Academy and welcome to the Chai Center. Yesterday, or the previous class, I should say, we discussed Billy Joel, an entertainer, and the previous class was Levi Eshkol, a prime minister, trying to be a little diverse. And today we're going to talk about somebody who's not an entertainer, and but is a fascinating, accomplished, and somebody who I really believe is has the best of the Jewish people at heart. So today's class, as advertised, is the story in 20-25 minutes, whatever it is, of Ronald Lauder. So Ronald is the Ronald Stephen Lauder, I think his name is. He was born in 44, and he is the son of Estee Lauder. Estee Lauder, together with her husband Joseph, built up this huge business, and I think it's headquartered in Long Island, if in Melville, if I'm not mistaken. At least they have a huge building there, and the Lauders are known for their philanthropic activities, their activism, and specifically Ronald. There's two brothers, there's Leonard and Ronald. So Ronald is the one we're going to be focusing on today. And by the way, there's been in the news a few years ago a bit of divorce with a Lauder, and so that is Ronald's nephew. It's not Ronald. Ronald has been married to the same person for the past, 40-something years, maybe more, and he, his dirty laundry has not been washed in public. When I first heard of the terrible divorce and how she was demanding so much money and he didn't want to give her, and the money was ridiculous. I mean, these people are billionaires. I thought right away it's Ronald, but it wasn't. So it is Howard, the son of Leonard, I believe. So he went. He was born in New York City. He went to Bronx High School, and he got a bachelor's from the Wharton Business District, Wharton Business School. I'm sorry, and he got his bachelor's there. And he didn't go for his master's, but then again, I guess he didn't have to. He went straight into the business, and he pretty much has been working in the business since he was 20 years old, right? So I think if he was born 44, by 64 he was already in the business. It's with a slight detour because at the age of 40, and this is a very pivotal moment in his life. Former President Ronald Reagan appointed him to be the ambassador to Austria. Now, clearly, that's where the Lauders' ancestry came from, etc. And he was the ambassador, and he was there for I think 3 years, etc. And when he was the ambassador, there's a few things that he did. He fired a number of people from the embassy because they were involved with that famous spy who was giving information to Hansen, I think his name was, giving to the Russians. He's always been on the forefront of fighting anti-Semitism. So when he was in Austria, clearly he had a lot with what to fight. Right, he had people to lambaste and people to really argue with, and he did it very well. Now, as you can guess, because he was appointed by Ronald Reagan, he was a Republican, and in fact, he was such an extreme right Republican that when he ran for mayor in New York City, Rudy Giuliani won and not him. He was to the right of Giuliani, if you could, so Giuliani's pretty right? He's pretty, to the right of center. Ronald Lauder is right of center. and he's very, very conservative. Now, because he was a extremely wealthy man, because he was a previous ambassador, and he was very, very involved. He was somewhat of a statesman and a diplomat, and wealthy, and he had a good sense, a good healthy ego, a sense of self, etc. So he was also tapped by former President Benjamin Netanyahu, the first time around. So Benjamin Netanyahu was prime minister for like 12 years, and then then Naftali Bennett won. But before he was prime minister, there were a couple of prime ministers after Bibi Netanyahu. So the way it worked was like Bibi Netanyahu, and then Ehud Olmert, right? And I'm not sure where Ehud Barak filled in, but I know Ehud Olmert was after Bibi, and then back to Bibi. So someone's asking about Susan's asking about the Estee Lauder guy. Yeah, so remember, there's a few Estee Lauder players, right? There's Ronald, who I'm speaking about. There's his brother Leonard. There's Howard Lauder, and I'm sure there are other. Ronald himself had 2 daughters, both heiresses to billions of dollars. So Ronald is a conservative. So Bibi tapped him the first Bibi go around. Bibi tapped him to negotiate with Syria peace. Now, there was some light there. There was some hope that Syria was coming to the table, and there was discussions. It was ultimately, it proved to be fruitless, and as you know today, Syria is overrun by Hezbollah, which is a branch of Iran. So now it's completely hopeless. But then peace could have been had. I don't know if it's a stable peace or a fragile peace or whatever, but there was a possibility. There was, so he tried. He did try, and ultimately it failed. I believe, by the way, if I remember correctly, the peace talks took place in the United States. I think it took place outside of Washington, D.C., if somebody can remember. It's like Preston, Virginia, or something like that. I'm not sure where in Virginia, but I believe it was in Virginia. Anyway, it failed, and a lot of these peace deals fail. Right? And unfortunately, Israel doesn't have a peace partner. They don't. So when Ehud Barak and Ehud Olmert literally gave up so much, things beyond what they should have given up, Arafat couldn't pull the trigger. He couldn't. And likewise with Syria. Assad, he I guess he wasn't ready, and now he's definitely not ready. Now he just, he's in trouble himself. By letting in Hezbollah and letting in Iran. Russia, it's a mess. Anyway, well, we're not talking about Assad, as he's not a fascinating Jewish personality. If anything, he's a wicked personality. Ronald Lauder is literally involved in every establishment organization. American Jewish Congress, the World Jewish Congress, the Jewish National Fund, the Rabbinical College of America, the Abraham Fund. The Abraham Fund, by the way, is he put heavy money into the Abraham Fund. The Abraham Fund is a fund that it's in Lud, where they had recent fights between Jews and Arabs, and there was and it was terrible because they've always lived well together, and it just escalated into violence in the street. Abraham Fund actually gives money, millions, to help Lud, the residents of Lud, both Jew and Arab, coexist. Equality. And it really pushes the envelope that you gotta, love thy neighbor and work with thy neighbor, and that's the Abraham Fund. Of course, the Jewish National Fund is to provide, make sure that there's, Israel has water and only within the Green Line, unfortunately, but and so he's involved in so much. He's currently the I believe he's the president of the World Jewish Congress. When Edgar Bronfman, of Seagram's Canada Dry and the alcohol, the Canadian Club, when Edgar Bronfman stepped down, he was nominated to be the president of the World Jewish Congress, which was established in 1945 or 40. I don't even know when it was established. But he's that. It's a very, very prominent position. Another interesting thing he did, and I agree with him 100%, is that in New York City specifically, he invested money in order that there should be term limits. He felt politically that if you don't have term limits, it leads to complacency. Politicians, incumbent wins most of the time, a good edge anyway, and the politicians can become corrupt. It becomes an old boys club, and he invested money, heavy money, to make term limits, and I believe term limits is a good thing. I didn't always feel that way, by the way. I felt term limits, now they're just getting their feet wet. You want to take the rug out from under them, but clearly the positives outweigh the negatives, because they really just get entrenched and they can say and do what they want without being held accountable. All sides. This is not even a political statement. This is all sides. One something that very much impressed me, that he paid $135 million for a painting that was stolen by the Nazis. When the Nazis stole, as you know, the Nazis looted. They looted the homes. They sent them to concentration camps, and then they looted their homes, the Jewish homes, and they took the gold and the silver and the Inglorious Bastards, I think, is based on that. But they also took art. So there was this artwork, and I don't remember what it was, but I remember the story. So it was owned by an Altman, I think her name was, and it was a piece of art, and he bought it for $135 million, and it gave it back to his rightful owner, and I believe it hangs in a museum today. The World Jewish Congress was founded in 1936, not 1946, 1936. So he was, because he was such a prominent Jewish individual. The Lady in Gold, thank you. That's exactly what it was. Because the painting was the Lady in Gold. Personally, to me, it doesn't look like it's worth $135 million, but what do I know? When I have a lithograph for 65, I'm really happy. So because he's such a prominent person, that President George W. Bush invited him to go to Israel on the 60th anniversary of statehood, and he was one of the people that went. So, as you can see, he put his money where his mouth was, but not only money. I remember this distinctly. It was the CEO of Formula One was a rabid anti-Semite, and he was making these outrageous claims, right? And he was very vocal. Now, this is a CEO of, once again, a billion-dollar company. He said he has to step down. He has to step down. This is unacceptable that he's the CFO, And eventually, by the way, and then he made another comment, ridiculous, what does the World Jewish Congress do anyway, and things like that. Eventually, there was so much pressure that the CEO of Formula One actually apologized, and he said, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. I'm completely wrong and off, and he fell on his sword. He would never fall on his sword if not for a heroic attempt by Ronald Lauder. He also, and I wrote letters to this effect also. My letters, but they wanted to beatify or canonize, make into sainthood Pope Pius XII, and or the seventh Pope Pius XII. Pope Pius XII. So he was the Pope from 1939 and on, and we know he made some very dastardly decisions that and Jewish lives were lost, and he seemed to be completely unmoved by the Jewish plight, by the death and destruction, and then years later they want to make him into a saint, and they want to, I forget the word truth is. It's not my, I'm not a connoisseur, but beatify him, something like Beatify, I think. And he was vocal. He said, "How dare you? How dare you?" He says, "You're gonna belittle every other saint by making him to be a saint." So he calls people out. He calls people out. He calls it as he sees it. The other day, and this is what made me think of him, by the way, to talk a little bit about him. The other day, he took a full-page ad in the New York Times, which we know is not cheap. And New York Times is no lover of the Jewish people, but he took a full-page ad, and it was addressed, it was very respectful. It was addressed to President Biden. It was pleading with the president to stand up against anti-Semitism, that we need his voice, that there's been an uptick, and it's outrageous, and President Biden is a good man, and he knows him well. He knows he's a man of character, is what he wrote, and he says, and he needs him to be vocal. He can make the difference by squashing it. And that was the ad, which he probably paid $50,000 for, in the New York Times. So he was, once again, in 2018, I remember this vividly. In 2018, I don't know if you remember, Poland, the country of Poland, to shame on them, and to the world's chagrin, issued a proclamation that, first of all, Poland was not responsible for the Holocaust, and the Jews were equally responsible for the Holocaust. And if you say that Poland were the villains of the Holocaust, that's punishable by prison. And they came out with that, and there was an uproar. Ronald Lauder gets up, and he writes a scathing letter, CC'd it to many people, everybody, and he says he cannot believe the appalling ignorance of the Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister, I can't pronounce his name. I'm sorry. I never knew, and I don't know how to pronounce his name. Lauder took him to the cleaners. I mean, he cleaned his clock with appalling ignorance, he said. And I don't know if Poland turned back. I don't know if Poland reversed their decision. Poland is a thorn in our side. I mean, to the Jewish people. Interesting to note, the Lubavitcher Rebbe sent out emissaries all over the world. He was very reluctant for years, for 30 years, not to send an emissary in Poland. He didn't want to send an emissary to Poland. I'm not sure what it was. Rumor has it that one time somebody asked the Rebbe, I believe it was David Chase, a wealthy a wealthy man says, "Why not, Rebbe? Why not Poland?" And the Rebbe says, "Haven't they hurt us enough?" Something to that effect. I don't know if it's true. Now there is Chabad presence in Poland. Rabbi Stauber, I think his name is. But for many, many years, the Chabad in Las Vegas opened before Chabad in Poland opened, just to give you that idea. And you see, Poland, they never miss an opportunity to be anti-Semitic. In 2020, and he put close to $2 million in order to fight the idiocy called bail reform, where basically where criminals get, as he puts it, I happen to agree with him, where criminals get more rights than the law-abiding citizens. That because there's a bail inequality, not everybody can afford bail. Therefore, there's no bail, and you get arrested, you get booked, and you leave immediately, and you get an appearance ticket, but there's no bail. Now, not to get political, I completely, also it hasn't, decriminalizing crime doesn't lead to safer streets. This is obvious. But if you don't want to sit in jail overnight, don't commit a crime. That's what I would say if I was on the legislature. If I was an assemblyman, that's what I would say, and I wouldn't have voted for it. I'm sorry. But so he spent money to try and stop it from happening. The whole change in New York's criminal thing, where the day it happened was tremendous applause up in Albany. For the life of me, crime. When you commit a crime, it's not a political statement. When you commit a crime, you're a criminal, and if it warrants you serving a night in jail, so be it. So be it. Something that he did that I know affects many people, Ronald Lauder, is that he when couples can't conceive naturally, so they need to go to IVF. And when you go to IVF, it's especially for a Jewish religious couple, it gets very tricky because there's many Jewish laws involved. Because according to Jewish law, you can, for the most part, only inseminate the woman's egg with her husband's sperm. And because of that, you need a supervisor. Just like you need kosher needs a supervisor, you need a supervisor for this. So to get a supervisor to go into the hospital, it has to be a person of Jewish faith. It has to be someone who knows the intricacies, etc. And hospitals gave a hard time. They said no. We have our policies, and we have our policies. So Lauder heard about it, and once again, I know people who benefited from this. He founded in Columbia Hospital. I don't know if it's Columbia Presbyterian. I forget what it's called. It's called the Lauder Infertility Ward, and it has all the trimmings that it's religious Jews, Orthodox Jews. It has everything that they need. Or even, and it's interesting, there's an organization who's phenomenal, organization called Bonei Olam, which is, if Jewish couples cannot conceive, they have experts, and they have different doctors, male experts, female experts, etc. And they also help pay. They help pay for this, and they have rabbis on staff, they have counselors on staff, therapists on staff, etc., etc. And they give hard money. I know somebody, they gave $35,000 in order to help do this IVF procedure, and she had to give the other $5,000. They work in tandem. Bonei Olam works in tandem with the Lauder Infertility Clinic. I don't know if anybody knows this, but Ronald Lauder studies Torah every day. He has a phone conference with a rabbi every day. He prays every day. And Shabbat, he likes to go to synagogue services. And he's not an uninvolved Jew at all. As I said, he's very active in political and social causes. He's active in clearly religious causes, as the Fertility Clinic. But there's another thing that he did that was beautiful, and I actually was a recipient. Basically, if you have a sick child and you are inundated with medical bills and hospital bills, and you are it's the Lauder Foundation, and it's I can find the link if I have to, and I gave a short synopsis that I'm a child's been in hospital for a few years, and it's it's impossible, etc. Somebody contacted me, and within 3 days I was awarded $5,000 to pay a certain bill, or to pay insurance for a couple months, whatever it was. Just, he didn't know me from Adam, and the person that called was kind, was sympathetic, empathetic, and just was willing to help. And I believe the grants are $5,000, and they said, wait till a little grass grows and you can apply again. I don't know if I will, but that's just to me, he's an amazing person. He's really a Jewish statesman, and he accomplished a lot, and he stands up for what he believes in. He's also a somewhat of a there are people, employees. It was actually they signed recently. They signed 100 employees signed a letter against him, asking him to remove himself from the Lauder Foundation, the Lauder Estee Lauder, because he gave money to former President Donald Trump. So they were offended by it, and what a shame that it was that they that he supported such a this, that, and the other. And so he wasn't without controversy, I think the way I see it, and once again, I think if somebody gives money to a Republican cause or a Democrat cause, there's no reason to cancel them out. If you give money to the neo-Nazis, or you give money to the KKK, or you give money to the Black Panthers, I believe that is completely negative and abhorrent. You want to give money to a political cause, even if somebody you don't agree with, and you give money to if they're anti-Semitic is one thing, but you give money to someone you completely disagree with politically, I don't think there should be a petition against you. Just common sense tells me that. You give money to Ilan Omar, yeah, I'm going to be upset because she's an anti-Semite. But you give money to AOC, I don't agree with a lot of what she says, but who am I to cancel you over that? So I believe Ronald Lauder got a little bit of a raw deal, and I believe there's way more good than bad. Way more good than bad. There's a girls' school, huge, one of the biggest yeshivas probably in the world. It's located in Brooklyn. It's called Beth Rivka. So I believe Ronald Lauder donated $5 million to have that monstrosity built to educate higher education for Jewish girls. I'm a fan. What can I say? God bless.